When love is so selfless, how come it seems to take...
Alright, welcome to Storyteller Sessions, presented by theLionhearted, me. This is the very first one, so I'm excited. This is the Lionhearted Storyteller Session. I am here with William Robert Stoy and Brandon Boers, two of my closest boys. Decided to have them with me for this one. Brandon's helping doing a lot of the sound-based stuff, a lot of the mixing. Yep. He's provided a wonderful mic that's helping us get at least not potato sound.
And I'm just here. Yeah,
Billy's been my best friend since I was 18, so it's kind of important. He's a deep part of a lot of the stories that make up the story of my life. So I was like, let's have both my dudes here for this. So I'm gonna jump in just with the songs in general, and then we'll just have a conversation. Actually, before I jump in with the songs, let me just if you're watching this is Storyteller Sessions. This is the first one, so you probably don't know what that is. Storyteller Sessions is an idea that I had. I listened to a lot of music, and in listening to the music, a lot of times I want to know the story behind it, because I think it's interesting and compelling and emotional, and there are times where I've learned the stories behind. You'll see in his Storyteller Session, in the interview, we had talked about the fact that knowing him as long as I have, listening to the music that he writes, I know a lot of the stories that are in those songs without even having to ask him about it, so I'm able to connect with those songs more. And so there are songs, I think one of the first ones that ever happened with was, I know they're kind of forbidden to talk about, but Brand New and Taking Back Sunday had beef songs with each other. They had these two songs that both bands wrote because they hated each other for whatever reason. But before you knew that, they were pretty good songs, and then you find out oh no, this song is because this guy had beef with this guy, and then he wrote another song, and you listen to both those songs knowing that, and you're like, oh, these songs are brilliant now, and you can connect to them on such a deeper level. And so I've always loved that. And also connect back, Garrett Russell, right? Garrett Russell from Silent Planet did an entire video series on The Night God Slept. It's Silent Planet, great band, amazing record. And I love the record when I first heard it, and then I watched him talk about the story behind each of the songs, and I was immediately oh, now I love this even more. I understand it. Plenty of bands have done it, and I just wanted to do it myself. I wanted to do it, but I wanted to do it for my friends and for artists that I believe in. And so season 1 is dedicated to people who have been part of the Lionhearted story, mostly since 2016, some before. But yeah, so obviously that story starts here with me. Simple thing about Storyteller Sessions is it runs on a concept where on Monday a video will have come out. It'll be a song, very simply, and that's all that'll be. It'll just have lyrics attached to it, nothing else. Wednesday a second song will come out, and then on Friday this interview, or interviews to follow, will come out about those two songs, simply telling the story behind them, or whatever the artist intended in that. And very simply then, at that point, the thing that I feel people will possibly miss is go back then and listen to Monday and Wednesday song, and now you have this lens with which to look at the art, where you can see oh, this was I looked at it through my lens first on Monday, and then I looked at another one with that same lens, and now I can borrow this guy's lens, attach it to my lens, and I could look through both lenses at it and understand the song in a different way that I never would have understood it if I hadn't heard the story.
It's those Benjamin Franklin lenses in National Treasure.
National Treasure. Yeah,
flip the switch.
Yeah, you just have the red one, and my goal with the Lionhearted and Storyteller is going to be kind of a brand that's a sneak peek. I have a lot of ideas. We were talking about I'm the idea man, and God help me, I want to get them done. But this is the first one, Storyteller Sessions, and the whole goal of it is to give you the blue lens or the green lens, whichever the artist brings with them.
Which is awesome, and like we were talking about, the order of operations that you have laid out, I think is key because it allows listeners to experience the song just in the raw initial interaction between them and the music, and each listener has their own personal experience with that initially and their own personal interpretation of what it might mean, or questions that arise as they are listening to the music, or just the emotional response that we all have to songs when we hear it for the first time. And then you get the behind the scenes look from the artist's perspective of, you know, their emotional connection to the song, their intention behind the lyrics. And then you get to take, both of those lenses and then go back and look at it again and be like, oh, okay. And see the differences between your initial perspective and the artist's, or maybe they were similar, maybe they were totally different. I don't know. That's cool.
And that is the key, is to, like I said, go back and rewatch them. And then the second key after that is it's also going to be an awareness tool in a way, because it's going to feature different artists every week. And so if you came to this because you loved the artist that you saw posted about, like, don't stop with them, go watch the other ones. Like, you'll find some really cool people that you didn't know existed, because some people, like this one is, you know, he's doing great work but hasn't put anything out, and this will be one of the only places to hear it, kind of like. And there's more people like that where if you didn't know about them, now you have a chance to know about them.
Word.
I'm trying to think, is there anything else I wanted to say about Storyteller Sessions as a whole? This first one should be coming out in either November or December, depending on how quick I should be able to edit everything and just throw it together and go. The rest of these, so this is like episode 0. Episode 1 will be coming out in like January. That's like the goal, is just to start, hopefully first week in January, just start, you know, each week will be a new one, and I think there's somewhere between 10 and 13 people that should be doing it, so you'll have about 10, 13 weeks of it, and then hopefully, you know, depending on everything, the goal is for there to be a season 2 and so on and so forth, but, you know, one step at a time. Mm-hmm. So that's the Storyteller concept. And then basically what the interviews will be is this. It's going to be the artist, which in this case is me, theLionhearted, and simply just going through the story behind the song. The first song that I did for Storyteller Session is Hearts. It's one of my favorites. It used to be just my complete favorite, and now I'm slowly like writing stuff that's sneaking up into place. And it was my favorite because it was like the first honest, uncontrived song I wrote. A lot of the other songs, like, I've written because I wanted to, you know, we were in a band called Amadeus when, you know, we were babies essentially. And we wrote this song called Before Your Eyes Could Open, which was about a guy in a relationship with a girl, and like they accidentally, not accidentally, but unintentionally have a kid, and then I don't remember what we decided the story was, whether like they chose together to abort it or something, and then he comes to regret it, and so he has this whole like, it was this very like sorrowful song about like this child that he never got, that he wished he had and regretted that he didn't, basically. Mm-hmm. And just like singing this song to this child. It was, a well-meaning, somewhat immature kind of and it definitely, like, for someone who was 18 and you were like, what, 14 or 15 at the time, like, It was such a weird thing for us to write, but it was just, it was something that popped into the head and we just kind of wrote it. And there's a hopeful honesty in it, in like an empathy kind of a way, but there wasn't a real honesty there. I didn't really know what that felt like. So Hearts was, of the songs in theLionhearted's first EP, Absolution and Redemption, other than, that's the spoken word piece was a whole different step, but I'm not really going into that. I'm not an actual spoken word artist in any way, shape, or form, so that doesn't really come up much, other than if you listen to the EP itself. Hearts comes up at every show. But anyway, like, Hearts was the first one where, like, in the specific moment that I felt those feelings, I was able to sit down and just, like, start writing what I felt in that time, and that's what came out. Whereas, like, if you listen to Healing or Hands, like those are actually songs where I wasn't feeling the healing elements of it, or I wasn't feeling like I was in God's hands at the time, but like I believed that one day I would feel that, and I tried to write that. So I wouldn't say they were as honest, because they were like a hopeful honest, I guess. But Hearts was a bit more like of a specifically honest song, that, and it's a song that came from a specific situation, but then ended up working with almost every situation in which I've just felt that feeling of like, I don't know, my heart wants to go 2-3 different ways right now, and I don't know which thing I should follow, and I don't feel like anyone is there to guide me on the path to the correct decision. And that's kind of where that song as a whole comes from. So like, at first it was to be about this specific story, but then it ended up morphing into this song that kind of works no matter what. Like, I've felt that song since the situation that caused me to write it, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it like grew out of just being like, oh, it's about love and love being broken and being sad because of girls, and then ended up being, you know, equitable to, oh, well, my father is in the hospital right now and dealing with something really difficult, and like everything is going to hell and I don't know what to do, and like I want to do this, but I should do this, but I could do this. Which of these should I do? God, why don't you feel like you're here? And that's where that song has like stuck around, because it's like a place where I can go to like have that honest conversation, where it's like every once in a while I don't, you know, I feel like as much as I know what God has done for me, I don't feel like he's there sometimes, and so you have those moments where you kind of have to like deal with that. And that's where coming back to this song is nice, because it is this safe place to come back to and be like, okay, I am allowed to ask these questions and feel this way, and then, you know, remember that, okay, in the past, the last time I had to ask this question, there was an answer, and then like there is that like little subconscious hope that you like you're not gonna grab it yet, because you're like, you know what, I feel like being sad right now, but like there's that part where you know, like, okay, but it's there, like I know there was that answer the last time, I know an answer is gonna come again, kind of a thing. I don't know.
And that's what makes it so honest. We're never always in the same constant state of being or feeling or thinking or believing, you know, so we're never in a totally hopeful state of being, you know. We do dip into those hopeless stages, and so that song allows you to dip into that place, you know, and express from that state, but also holding on to that glimmer of hope. And it's like, well, I'm not feeling it right now, but I believe it's there. I believe I will get there. I'll be able to discover that again. Yeah, I don't know, that's cool. That's what makes that song honest, I think.
What you feeling? You feeling something?
Yeah, I think for like my music, it's like when I write it, it's like a memory stored into a piece of art, and every time I go back to it, you know, I may feel different emotions, and I may feel the same emotions that I felt when I wrote it, or when like what the situation had unfolded. So it's a cool, like that's what I like to do, even if I'm like you said, if you're feeling hopeless, like it's a way for me to like feel like there is hope, because you can write that song, and instead of, you know, writing it down in a journal, you have this piece of art that you can share with other people, and the way it's conveyed to them may be different than, you know, again, how you feel.
Yeah, and knowing that the beauty of art is knowing that like there are times where art, because I know the art of others, you know, like, you know, I talk about Emery a lot in a lot of things, like they've listened to those songs, helped me in times, like I know that like there's that hope that me knowing I felt that way, someone might listen to this song, instead of just holding on to whatever I feel inside myself, putting it in song form gives me that ability, you know, to kind of like travel back and see the hope or whatever it is you need from it. but then also that somebody else could like connect to it and maybe find catharsis in it, or hear the story and go like, oh wait, like he wrote that song and then found some hope, but then went back to that song and then can find hope again. Like you can kind of feel both. Like you don't have to always come to the full victory. Like you can actually like have a bad day again.
Ooh, so here's a good question for both of you guys then. I was talking to a friend about this recently. So the concept of, as artists, specifically musicians, and it would work for some other arts, but not all other arts, but with musicians, when you're performing your music, you are constantly coming back to that place to re-express the thing that you wrote at the time that you wrote it, which 10 years later you could be in a completely different state of mind, environment, life situation. And so we were talking about, you know, kind of that struggle of like putting yourself back in that place to be able to honestly express it the same way each time you perform the song. Anyway, so without talking about the conversation I had, what do you guys think about that?
I think that's pretty honest, at least from my perspective. As far as it's been, some of my songs are probably like 3 or 4 years older, and I just had experienced some of that emotion when I, at the end of my EP, I played a song called Tiny Parts, and at my grandfather's funeral I played that song. And one, obviously emotions were elevated because of that setting, but it also like flooded, my mind was flooded with images and different emotions that maybe I haven't felt before, or maybe I felt when I did write it. I don't remember exactly, but it, you know, overcame me, and it was somewhat hard to play that song, and I, you know, ended up breaking down. So yeah, I think even when I play, like when we play at open mics sometimes, you know, and as artists we mess up too. We mess up all the time. And I've messed up plenty of times, and I tell him like I just get so involved. I kind of like I want to put myself in that position because you want to convey your art the best way possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with that.
That was funny when I'm thinking about us talking right now, and I'm thinking about, you know, art, songs, and the way it's talked. Like, I always just sense the concept of someone watching this being like, oh, listen to them talk art. And, I'm like, oh, you know, I also don't know what it's like to talk about, like, oh, the big game and football and stuff like that. So, we each have our own thing.
For sure.
And we're artists. And that's just what we decided we liked. And so...
Yeah, this isn't Martha Stewart.
And and so, you know, what we're talking about, like, we are being very honest right now in the sense of, like, there is weird, hard stuff for artists, even though it's, like, this frilly little thing. It's like, oh, but you're just getting up and singing the song. But, like, there is a weird thing that's you can't understand. Like, I can't understand what it feels like to be the quarterback that wins some sort of game. I've never done it. Whatever.
Yeah.
But, and so, like, maybe some people might not understand, but, like, if you're an artist, you would understand this concept. Like, there is this weird thing where, like, you're putting yourself on this line and you're putting yourself on this weird pedestal, and, like, even right now, like, we're sitting in my apartment with a camera facing us. It's weird. But, like, the reason for it is, like, there is a goal and there is a mission that we all believe, or, you know, I especially believe, and I think we all believe, otherwise they wouldn't be here, all believe are important. And so that can be difficult. Like, this is a little difficult right now in some ways, shapes and forms, but I love what I know it can do, and so it's just like, yeah, let's do it. Like, I'm glad to be talking with my friends here.
Can I ask, is this, well, you're going to be putting this up on YouTube,
yeah.
So this is something that people can comment on.
Yes, oh yeah.
Can I ask the viewers a question?
Yeah. YouTube 101. Can I ask the viewers a question? Sure, let's ask the viewers a question.
Season 1, Episode 1, we're figuring it out.
Episode 0.
It's episode 0.
No, we gotta cut. We gotta do it over again.
No cuts, no edits.
So this is kind of part 2 to the question that I just asked, and so I'd be interested to hear your response to this.
Yeah.
Which you can give it after I ask. I would be interested to hear anyone's opinion, whether you're an artist or not, on if you think it is a good thing or a healthy thing, or even maybe a necessary thing for an artist to constantly be going back to a place that they were. And so say maybe like an artist, maybe a musician wrote a song during a time that they were super depressed, and beautiful art came out of that. But every time they go back to that place to re-express that song through performance for others, they have to like put themselves in that headspace. Or like if there was a time someone was hurt or extremely angry, and out of that emotion, and kind of the beauty of the therapy of writing music is that you can get it out of your system that way. Do you think it is good to constantly be going back to that place?
I would say it depends on the person. I think it depends on like the kind of road you've gone down through it. I think sometimes going back into that space is the same thing as like when you go to therapy. Sometimes you just have to like dig back up the thing, because in the time since you have experienced X, Y, and Z that have caused you to go back, but now you've like repressed it because you're like, oh well, I gotta go to work, I can't think about this thing that happened, I gotta shove it down into my soul really quick. And then so like, well, maybe I do need to go back to that place because it'll, remind me or relive it out. But then maybe there's, for some people, it'll bring them to a place where, like, if it brings you to a place where you end up being harmed by the emotion, like, then that might not be so cool, I think, because, again, like, I don't think anyone should really be spending time doing something that's like causing pain to their health. So, like, for sure. I wouldn't say this song never brings pain to my health when I play it. I'm just like, I love it because it's like, I don't know, just this concept of creation. There's this element, and then like, as a Christian person and someone who believes what I believe with Jesus, it's like we believe in creation and there's an importance to it, and that's whatever, we're not going to go super crazy with that right now, but art is this element of creation. And so I think there's this concept where artists are proud of their creations, and so I think like that's like why part of me wants to be like, no, yeah, like it's good to go back because like I am proud of this song, and so that's why I like to come back and sing it, because like it is something that when I looked at it at the end, I was like, I love this. I didn't make this for some executive who is like, we need units, we need 10 songs by Tuesday. Like, I made this for me, and I made this to the specifications of what I loved. And then since then, other people have poured in. Like, Brandon has been a huge influence on this song and what it's shifted from. Word. And like, no one's ever gonna really hear that in a recorded performance unless we ever are able to like get a newer performance of what it is as a full band, what it's supposed to sound like. I don't know if it'll ever be recorded that way, hopefully. But like what that song started as and what it is now live is like hugely different, and people have input on that, and I've input on that as I change. So like the song itself has morphed to things, and so there's this element of pride in loving the creation of it that just like, well, yeah, if it's gonna bring me back to something, it also weirdly will bring me joy too. Like when I did the song at Bloodline Fest recently this year, like people were singing along with it, and it's something that I've always envisioned when I wrote it, was this concept of like people singing this group vocal part that's at the end, and to hear people do that was like this thing where like, even though the song reminds me of times where things are hard, seeing that it's bringing these people together with me and we are connected on this weird metaphysical level right now. I now feel this level of joy that this song, there's a cognitive dissonance because this song's not about joy really, but I'm feeling a joy in the performance of it because it's bringing us together.
For
and
sure.
So yeah, I feel like it's very subjective of whether like that's a yes or a no or good or bad. You think I'm an idiot? Tell me, that's great. I don't care.
I think it's just an interesting thing to even consider. What it means to put yourself back in that place. And then there's kind of another aspect to it as well, which is you have a lot of artists who have fans that like certain eras of their music, and the artist might evolve past that. What are you thinking of?
I was just thinking, I was like, we definitely need to continue on in one sense, because this definitely became the Philosophers Sessions. We are highly philosophizing and not telling a story, but I do love this. It's good. It's just, sorry, it made me laugh just thinking that. But no, you're right. Like, there's that element of that with music, and it all comes back to what this project is about, which is about telling the story of music. And the story of music is in the creation and is in the fact that these songs get replayed, and the people who pick their songs pick them because they love them and because they bring them to a place, or they do something for them, and maybe it brings them to a bad place, and maybe they'll watch this video and be like, oh man, like I didn't even think about if that's unhealthy for me or not. And you know, like I said, or like you said, comment. You know, I've never had a video on YouTube yet that has had comments other than like, oh, you did a good job sounding like Devin in that secret thing. And I was like, okay, yeah, cool. That's besides the point. Anyway, as far as story goes, though, the deeper element of the story goes with my story, which caused, you know, the original writing of the song didn't have to do with what it ended up. It ended up being like this weird, you know, prophetic song, in the sense that I wrote it for something I didn't know was going to happen. And basically when it happened, it was like, oh, this song matters to me even more now because of what I'm feeling right now and what I'm dealing with. And it was, the story of the song is part of the catalyst of the Lionhearted being what it is today, as like the music I'm trying to do and the art that I'm trying to do. And it's basically, I was going to get married in 2016. That fell through and failed, didn't happen. And so I went into a very steep depression, and definitely went through all the stages of this with God, of being like, why? Like, I thought this was the right thing. I thought this was the path I was supposed to go down. And, you know, where are you in this? And what should I do? Like, should I follow this thing that's in my heart, or should I follow this logic, or should I follow this other thing that's in my heart? Like, there are these different paths to go down that you would naturally have when a relationship ends. And because of it, I did end up following a path which will lead me to the next song. The path I followed was, I've mentioned Embry. That's my favorite band, which is apparent. If you've listened to them, you'll listen to the Lionhearted music and go, oh, he ripped off Emery a lot. What's actually crazy, I'm not even ripping off of them, because I came up with this Storyteller Session idea like years ago, but do you know that right now they're doing a tour called Songs and Stories?
Stop.
Like, it annoyed me. I was just like, I'm like, they're gonna get all the credit on that one.
Well, we always used to
this was the first thing I technically didn't rip off of them. But then it looks like I did.
We used to joke in the band that Tim had that tooth and nail Christmas ornament hanging in our band room, and we used to joke that there was like a microphone in there, and tooth and nail bands were like picking up on our stuff as we were writing
and
it.
And they would put it out.
Yeah, because before we got to release songs, people would release songs and albums with really similar concepts, and we were like, what is going on?
My favorite was the zombie one. Didn't like Devil Wears Prada?
Yeah, we were just talking about doing a zombie
yeah.
EP, and then they dropped it, and it was literally called Zombie, right?
Zombie
Yeah.
EP, yeah.
And you were just like, but no. Other stories for other days. But anyway, so yeah, favorite band, rip off them a lot in loving homage ways. Not, you know, it's. My work is my work. It's my own. It's not completely stolen, but it's definitely, I do a lot of homage stuff because we are all inspired by different stuff. So when I was going through that depression and like trying to find my way, I just kept hearing that they were like, oh, we're going to be at this thing called Audio Feed, and I'd never heard of Audio Feed in my life. And on a whim, I was just like, let's go. I'm going to drive 14 hours by myself and just go, which I'd never done ever. And I was like, forget it, I'm just gonna pack some stuff, pack my little travel bike, and throw all my stuff in my car and drive. And I said that to everyone. Everyone was like, oh yeah, go ahead, that's what you should do. And so I did. I didn't even buy a ticket. And I was like, I really hope that it's not like sold out, because I didn't know what it was about. Like, I didn't know how it was. And so I was like, yeah, I guess if it's sold out, I'll just like stand nearby and listen or something. Like, I don't know, whatever. I brought a guitar just in case. Maybe I'll like busk or something. I don't know. I just had different ideas. Anyway, I show up there, and I remember walking onto like the fairgrounds of the place and just being, what am I talking about walking? I was riding my little bike, and I'm just like sitting there, and I look around, and I just went, oh no, I just changed my life forever, because I'm gonna want to go to this for like forever. I just remember looking at it and being able to tell like this was gonna be something special. I don't know why, I just knew it. But like my plan was just like hang out, like not really, I wasn't like planning on meeting anyone. I wasn't planning on like, I would go try and see some of the bands that I recognized, but I wasn't gonna like go all out, you know. I was just gonna kind of like hang around, see what was up, and then like once Emery was on, go see Emery, and then just drive home the next day. And like literally the first night, I'm sleeping in the back seat of my car, because I just like parked on the grass, laying down in my car, and at 2 a.m. for no reason, because I wasn't old enough yet for that, but I had to pee. Just, I don't know, I guess I drank too much. And I was just like, all right, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. And it's funny, because you think like, okay, well, you're in a field, why don't you just like pee in the field? You're a dude, you have that. And I was just like, no, like there's other cars around here, I'm not gonna do that. So I walk all the way to the bathroom to go to the bathroom. And as I'm walking back, and this is such a weird part of the story, it's like, why is he telling us about going to the bathroom? Because it's important, people. It's
part
important.
of the story.
It's part of the story. Without that bathroom, so many things wouldn't have happened.
Relatable.
Yeah. So I'm laying in the bathroom. It's still, you know, it's like what, 2:03, because maybe it's, I don't know. I'm just messing. So I'm walking out of the bathroom, and there weren't people there on the way to the bathroom, and now there's people there on the way back. And I was like, okay, this is weird. It's like 2 a.m. Why are there people out? And there was this dude, and like I don't know who's watching and how much they know about like churchy things and stuff like that, but there's this dude, and he was like trying to pray for these other dudes. And he wanted to pray for them to like have the Holy Spirit, which a very, you know, churchy element. If you know what that means, you know what it means. If you don't, you don't. Whatever. And I don't remember who pulled me into this group of people, but someone was just like, yoink, like, hey stranger, join this group of people. And I was like, oh sure. And I can't remember the specifics. I just remember being like, sure, why not? Like, when in Rome. Sure. Like, what else could I be doing at 2 a.m? I could be asleep, or I could be with strangers. And so I was just there, and like it was a fairly quick prayer, and I was like, okay, like nothing crazy happened. And the guy walked off, and a couple other dudes walked off. But then there were these other dudes there. One is this guy Danny Ducap is a friend now, and this other dude Chris Bernstorff is a friend now. If you've listened to Lionhearted songs, he ended up on doing kind of fun collaboration with an older song called Healing, and we did a Healing Part 2. He's become a huge part of the Lionhearted story. His Storyteller session will be somewhere in season 1. But anyway, so him and Danny just like were just like, hey stranger, like how are you? And I'm just like, I'm a stranger, yeah, what's up? Like, I'm just here, whatever. And we just kind of like talked a bit, and it was very like whatever, but they were super like friendly and super welcome, and just like, hey, do you know like any bands, like who are you here to see? And I was like, just Emery. And they're like, oh, that's cool. Anybody else? I'm like, nah, I don't know. And they're like, oh dude, like you should come see these people, and like why don't you check this out, and like blah, 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 like here's my number, like whatever. Cool. And I was like, oh, okay. And it like just was this weird spark that like, here's the path, and it was like, this is where it could have gone, path stops here, and then all of a sudden the path veers off, and now it goes in a different direction. And that weekend, instead of keeping to myself and like wallowing in some sort of depression, I like opened up to these new people and told my story to new people. Outside of that bathroom, I met my favorite member of Emery, Devin, and like told him my story, and he later like gave me a shout out from stage before one of my favorite songs. Crazy moment. It's actually on my Instagram somewhere, if you know, Lionheart Music Instagram. Plugs. Anyway, and like just crazy stuff happened for the rest of that weekend. I stayed an extra day. Like I immediately just had this whole world open to me, and that's where, like, literally because of two, maybe three, I forget if there was another person there or not, but, like, the kindness of strangers, they opened up a world to me. And so you're like, where is this going? How does this go with the other song? The other song is The Parable of Smoke. Was the second song that I did, and it connects to this because The Parable of Smoke is literally spawned off of one lyric in a poem by Chris Bernstorff, where it says, sadness is like smoke. Sometimes you have to open up a window and let it diffuse out into the greater air. So open a window, essentially. And funny enough, I'm not the only person who was inspired by that. There's probably 5 songs of people that know Chris well enough that have written songs based on that, some, and much better than Parable of Smoke. But it was still, Parable of Smoke is mine. It was what I felt, and I realized that meeting those people, going to that place, was God opening up the doors to be like, hey, you don't have to remain in this depression. You can actually open up the window. Meeting these people was opening the window and letting the sadness out, and letting the sadness out to people to see and help kind of carry the burden. And it just kind of spawned this thing where it was I want to write a song about that concept of knowing that there is some way to let the sadness out. I don't know what it is for each person. I don't know how to open the window for you. I don't know how to open the window for you. Sometimes I don't even know how to open the window for me, but I know that there is a metaphoric comparison to opening the window. It is something. Maybe it's playing a song. Maybe it's going and reading a book quietly. Maybe it's going to church. Maybe it's talking to your best friend. Maybe it's
Chick-fil-A.
Maybe it's Chick-fil-A. Maybe it's sitting in the grass alone and listening to the sounds around you. It's whatever. But there's this element where it's just you do not have to sit in the smoke. The one thing I know about the nature of smoke, it's foolish to deny that it's there. A lot of people sit there and be like, nope, I'm not sad. I'm okay. No. And then they'll just be whatever. And then they'll sit in sadness instead of try and figure out what is some meaningful, purposeful thing that brings you some sort of joy that you can pursue instead of wallowing in something. And again, there's people that deal with very strict, and I'm not talking about this necessarily mind-numbing depression stuff where you need maybe professional help. I'm not batting down complicated issues. I'm saying there are some simple sadnesses that people will willingly sit in, and there were times where I know, even though I had a very good reason to be in the depression I was in at the time, there were times where I knew I didn't have to sit in it, and yet I chose to, or times where I knew I didn't have to sit with it and then got up and did something. And that's where I wouldn't know him because of that, because one of the things I got up and did was I was just I know I can do music and I love music. I want to go play some music. I know there's this open mic, and I went to that open mic, and because of that, it spurred this concept of these relationships with people, other people who will be on here, Bobby Siegfried is another one who will be on the Storyteller Sessions, Billy Bauer. These are people who, opened up another avenue in life, and it was a place where I knew, you know what, this week was rough. I can show up on Thursday, play some music, get some encouragement from some new friends, and hear some other people, maybe encourage them, and have this place to kind of release with other people, this catharsis, And it's been that for 3 years and running. And but I knew there were days where I was, I had the choice to go do something I knew would bring me joy, and I was but I'm just too tired or whatever, I don't want to. And I'm not crapping on people who stay in there. I'm just trying to put a song that says, hey, there is a window that can be open. If you're staying in the smoke, there is danger to it. So if you can see the window, you should open it up, metaphorically.
You don't have to die of smoke inhalation,
exactly, so to speak. Yeah, and that's just, but that, and obviously that metaphor woke something up in me when I heard it. I just remember after listening to, because Chris's poem is literally about that element of joy, and there's so much deeper than just that one metaphor that, like, please go listen to 152.42 by Chris Bernstorff. It's like 10,000 minutes long. Not really, I'm just joking. But, like, it's long, but it's so worth it, and it's a very, like, deep look into the beauties of finding joy even when, and even further than that, It's All Joy. Chris then took that and went and made an album called It's All Joy, which goes even deeper, where it's just like, hey, sometimes joy is found even in literally the hardest places, and there are people who sing in hardships, and that's another thing in the future that's coming. For me, there's songs I have that kind of touch on that, because that's a lot of our human experiences. Like, there's a lot of sadness, there's a lot of joy, and sometimes people think that's, like, completely mutually exclusive. Like, you can't, if you're sad, you have to say sad. And you can only find joy once all the sadness has, like, magically, like, I don't know, been sucked into something, I don't know, like, but there are people who have, in the middle of the saddest things, been able to, like, find joy in something and push through and find a strength or something like that. And that's kind of the hope with the song, is to, like, give people that, like, place to feel that they can do that. They can, if they, I don't know if anyone feels like they can't, but if, you know, there's a story where many stories where people have, and
yeah, that's
awesome. Kind of the story behind that song for me, is there was a time where I didn't realize I could, and then somebody forcibly showed me the window and opened it, or I opened it, I don't know who opened it, and once it was open, I was like, oh, this whole new world is here, and it spawned all of this. And, like, without that's happening, like, this wouldn't be happening. Like, I wouldn't be doing this. Like, if I didn't realize any of that, the Lionhearted wouldn't be a thing. I wouldn't be trying to be artistic anyway. I would still just be, like, doing my job, and then, like, going home and just being like, okay, like, I'll just play video games or whatever, which isn't bad inherently. There is more to it, and I was not able to see that until people opened different windows for me.
Yeah.
Or showed me the windows and allowed me to open them myself, or God opened them. Like, the different windows have been opened different times by different people. That's what I'm saying.
And what's cool about that story is that it speaks to the beauty and the power of community, and having people around you to help you open windows, or even just point out windows when you don't see them.
So if you're listening to this, we just figured out that the video parts had stopped a long time ago, so you've been looking at some cool picture, maybe of the three of us or something. I don't know what I'll put there. And we've been talking a while, and I think we've talked more than enough. My boys both need to go, and so I'm just going to simply say thanks for listening to this. There's going to be more coming out that are much shorter than this, and probably a bit more professionally done than this. But I thank you if you have stuck with us the entire time. You are the Lionhearted. You are the Lionhearted. You are the people that I do this for. And if you want to see more, there's obviously this YouTube channel, and there's Instagram, there's Spotify.
Your direct line, 1-800-LionHeart.
Yeah, 1-800-LionHeart, and I'm working on it.
Get straight to the source.
I called the president, and I was like, yo, can you give me, like, a red phone that goes right to me from my phone? But no, yeah, if you want, there's, you know, stuff will be in the description, I guess. I don't know how to YouTube yet.
We'll figure it out.
We'll get there.
It's season 1.
We'll get there.
It's episodes.
You got it. The motto. It's season 1.
Season 1. But I believe in honesty, and so some people are like, don't put out the first 10 things you do, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna put them out and let people see that I wasn't perfect from the start.
Word.
And then you can watch it grow. So if you like this, then keep watching, because it's gonna grow. Or that's what I believe. All right, love you guys. Thank you, Billy, Brandon, for joining me.
Love you too, brother.
Good boys. Good sweet dudes. Woo!